Hey, welcome to the last video for this week. Once again, I will probably be taking a break on Sunday just to record next week's videos and all that kind of stuff. So this will be the last video for the week. So once again, six character profiles. But let's get into the last one here. So this guy was called the Roman Ranger. And to be honest, with this character design, I was pretty happy with it, even though it was, a 2 minute doodle, but not a whole lot changed for him. Really, with him, it's just I finally gave him a backstory. So, but yeah, here's the original doodle for him. So just kind of a Roman gladiator looking guy with a bunch of swords, it looks like. So, but yeah, that's him and his original doodle. So let's get into his redesign. Not necessarily much of a redesign, it's just kind of a redrawing, I guess. A little more time spent in drawing him. There are like a few little subtle changes that I made, but you can see there I wasn't happy with the pose of the leg. I was just like, he's not doing like a ballet pose. You need him to look like he's actually getting ready to throw a spear. So, but yeah, like the overall aesthetic, the way that he's designed and stuff like that is very reminiscent of his backstory and stuff like that. So when we get into that, it'll make more sense. But yeah, just kind of a basic Roman legionnaire soldier guy. So not a whole lot character. The one thing that I did do with him is I kind of got rid of like the overabundance of swords and just kind of gave him a lance instead and just had one Roman sword for him. But yeah. And in case any of you guys are really like wondering like how long these usually take me, again, like if you were to sit next to me and watch me draw this, it would take anywhere from probably 2 to 2.5 hours for me to do this. But again, it's one of those things where I keep getting interrupted by other things, like I need to, do laundry or clean the house or something like that. So if I was to just like commit and just sit down and do this, it takes me about an hour and a half to do these doodles. Some may take even a little longer because some of them it's just like, I'm not in love with the design. If you've watched some of the other videos as well. This one took a little longer because I was kind of messing around with some colors in a different file, just kind of playing around. But I was just like, I like just kind of the bronze brown look with a little bit of a hint of red, just kind of a hint of the red kind of communicates a little more aggression or violence in the character design. So, but but yeah, so in essence, yeah, these take, I don't know, an hour and a half. If I'm struggling with composition or character design or colors, it may extend it to 2 hours. But yeah, these are by no means like the quick little 2 minute doodles, but these are by no means like I'm spending a full day illustrating these either. So they're just quick little redesigns that I can use for reference if I decide to make action figures or do like full-fledged illustrations or comic books. These are more just kind of like, oh, this is the design I went with when it comes to him. So, but yeah, so just kind of a muted design. One thing I did play with though, and it kind of communicates with his backstory, is I did change the color of his skin tone, and we'll get into the backstory about that. And that kind of explains why his skin is a little on the bluer side and why he's got energy coming out of his eyes and stuff like that. But let's take a look at his final illustration. So once again, here's the final illustration for Roman Ranger. But cool. Let's get into his backstory. So Roman Ranger. After the fall of Rome, many Roman legionnaires settled in villages and remote regions across what is now Europe. Imperius, a descendant of one such legionnaire, found himself once again called to war when the dreaded Dream Eater invaded from his dimension of night. Donning his great-grandfather's Roman legionnaire armor, Imperius went forth to battle, striking down countless foes. During one brutal clash with several dark demons, a weakened Imperius was overtaken and possessed by a Devoidian. Yet the entity underestimated the indomitable will of Imperius, and instead of dominating him, it became his slave. Now infused with the chaotic power of his possessor, Imperius unleashed devastation upon Dream Eater's invading forces. The unholy fusion granted him unnatural long life, allowing him to live for over 1,000 years before finally dying in America in the late 1850s. So the reason behind his kind of bluish skin, bluish purple skin, is that he is actually possessed by one of these Devoidians. But one of the things that the Devoidian didn't take into consideration is his stronger will. And so, due to his stronger spirit and will, he was able to overcome the possession and take control of the possessed demon, and utilize that as his power. So it was kind of like getting bit by a zombie and then utilizing, or like, no, it's not. Let's say getting bit by a vampire, but rather than being a mindless vampire that has to suck blood, you take all of the powers and benefits of being a vampire, but getting none of the negatives. And so, but anywho, so that's his backstory. His real name is Imperius. He's about 6'9", and that is a result of his possession. As a result of him being possessed by this Devoidian, his size is increased as well as his weight. He's 485 pounds. So. But powers and abilities. So Roman Ranger's natural powers and abilities were those of a highly trained warrior of his era. However, after his unnatural union with a Devoidian, he gained immense strength and near invulnerability. It is said that during the French and Indian War, in obviously his older age, he could withstand direct hits from cannon fire and sink ships by hurling entire trees from the coastline. Because he passed long before the scientific age, no precise measurements of his power were ever recorded. So due to him, passing away in the 1850s, there wasn't really any real way to accurately measure his powers and limitations, especially at that point. He was in his old age. He's been around since, the early, 200, 300 AD era, and now he finally dies in 1850s. So, yeah, once again, not a whole lot's known about his powers and abilities, but from what we do know, he's super strong, considerably more durable, and had a lot more stamina. Didn't have a whole lot in the way of power projection, although he could, project other items like his lance, or, like it said, he could tear up trees and throw trees or rocks or whatever. His intelligence was that of kind of an above average human being. Not genius level, but nonetheless, he could, he had abilities in battlefield tacticians and strategies and stuff like that. So, he wasn't ignorant. And then his speed, he had some considerable speed, just due to his, first and foremost, his unnatural abilities granted to him from the Devoidian. But, he was a highly trained warrior for his era. So, but yeah, in essence, that's the Roman Ranger. Out of all 6 of these for this week, he was the one that changed the least. It was kind of just finally giving him a backstory. So, but once again, tomorrow there will be no video. It'll be my opportunity to create next week's videos, and so don't expect anything until Monday. But thanks for tuning in all this week, and we'll catch you next week.